Right. So they're ripping us off. Modi's my great friend, but da, 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 da. We've heard this script before. Ambassador Kumar, the point is that there were attempts to negotiate behind the scenes, and those attempts may still be ongoing. The only official word from the government right now is we're assessing this, we're studying it. India did better in terms of market response than much of the world, many of the countries that are hit by this. What's your first take? Looked at this through diplomacy. Trump has said it's coming. It's come. With Trump, what he says you get. He doesn't just say it for the heck of it. That's quite clear, even with his domestic policy prescriptions. How do you react? Your first reaction, Ambassador Kumar?
So thank you very much for having me. I think my first response is that it could have been a lot worse. So I tend to think that we've been treated better than many countries in Asia. Second point I would like to make is, for me, it is not irreversible. We are in the middle of negotiations, and I would like to believe that at least some, if not all of these things can be reversed. And the third thing that I would like to say is, very frankly, and I'm sticking my neck out, Barkha, India needs tough love. We have been acting protectionist for a while, and we are great reformers only out of compulsion, not out of conviction. If somebody forces us to reform, I am thrilled with it. So maybe we should convert the crisis into an opportunity and do the kind of reforms which should have been done long back. Thank you.
So, Ambassador, tough love is the exact phrase that actually Donald Trump used. And you're actually saying, A, this is not the final number necessarily, and B, this is not bad. This is not all bad.
Yes, I'm saying absolutely the same thing that you just said. I think we need to look at this as an opportunity. We are negotiating, so it's fine. I understand why our response is it's a mixed bag. We are still evaluating. We are still assessing. That gives me an indication that we are still talking to the Americans, which is good. I also think, by the way, I don't share the jingoism of a lot of people who say we should retaliate immediately, because then you're getting yourself into a slippery slope. He will double the tariffs, and then what do you do? So we will get into details a little later. I'm sure, there's some sectors are going to be hit. I have no doubt about it, but we will talk about it. But when I look at what has happened to Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, I cannot but feel relieved.
That's a good point, Subhash Garg. Trump held up these images where the different tariff rates for all the different countries as it applied was revealed to the world. The Senate did manage to block for his tariffs against Canada, for example, right? But Ambassador Mohan Kumar is correct in pointing out that when it comes to other countries, he named Vietnam, he named Bangladesh in particular, we haven't done badly. But is this something that would concern you immediately for India's economic interests?
Number one, these are not reciprocal tariffs. These are something different. The way they have worked out is, in my judgment, very simple. Divide the Americans' trade deficit by the imports, and the resultant number is what will give you the number, and half of that is what they have imposed as tariff. So there is no favor to India or disfavor to Vietnam or anyone. Vietnam exports much more, import is much less, and therefore they've been slapped with, there is a difference of 92% that ratio comes to, and therefore 46 works out. So I don't think anybody should believe that he has been favorable to anyone. It's not case of India. It's favorable to anyone.
But you said something very important, and there's a lot of commentary on this even on social media. Trump claimed that these would be reciprocal tariffs, that these were being reciprocated by America to countries who did not have a fair tariff regime towards the United States. You are saying these are not reciprocal tariffs. They've just been calculated on the back of an envelope, given trade imbalance.
Just look at Vietnam, for example. The tariff for American goods is 7.5%. They have been imposed 46%. China is again about 5 to 7%. China has been imposed that high. So it has no relation whatsoever with what the tariff American goods are subjected in those respective countries. It is the trade imbalance, trade deficit America has. And by imposing these hypothetical, these are not tariffs, these are penalties. The American administration, Trump is trying to correct the economic order of the world, the manufacturing system of the world, that tomorrow, on the thread of this, Vietnam or India or China for that matter will import as much as the deficit is today from America. America has nothing to export of that, though it is about 16% of the global manufacturing, but that import is much higher, so 28, 29% or 30%. And therefore, I don't think this will work. What it will work is, without being said, what is actually happening is that in this global economic order, post World War II, the developing countries, both the least developed countries as well as the developing countries, were given very high preferential tariffs. They were not industrialized. The Americans and Europeans were industrialized. And over the years, last 50 years or so, they have also become industrialized. Today, 60% of the global manufacturing takes place in what we call developing countries. And therefore, preferential tariffs, which were there for last 30, 40 years, 50 years, are not required. And the countries are, I heard today that Vietnam has said, we'll make your tariff zero on everything, right? So tariff is not the issue. He's trying to change the economics, manufacturing.
So this is a really important point. And before I come to John and Padma, Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar, you said it's welcome. It'll force us to reform. But I think Subhash Garg makes a really critical point that what Trump has done is he's looked at the US trade numbers, and wherever there's a trade imbalance, he's actually calculated the percentage based on that imbalance. And therefore, this whole talk about reciprocal tariffs doesn't quite apply. So he's done us no favors here. Even though some other countries may be worse off, this is not because of any special relationship or love for India.
No, on that point, I agree with Mr. Garg. You can call it what you like. It's not reciprocal. I concede that point. But tariffs are meant to actually lead to security and predictability of trade. We have been playing havoc with tariffs. Every budget, you increase it, you decrease it, you put additional duties and so on. So my point is, I'm not here to defend what Mr. Trump has done. He has done what he has done, and I believe in many ways it is actually strikes at the root of the MFN system. I spent 10 years in Geneva negotiating at the WTO, and I see that, this is the last nail in the coffin, frankly, as far as the multilateral trading system is concerned. But I am looking at it from a purely pragmatic and geopolitical point of view. He has talked of India. Please look at the fact sheet of the White House. It talks not just of tariffs, but it talks of non-tariff barriers by India when it comes to telecom equipment, when it comes to medical devices, routers, switches. And he also says that if countries can actually meet the security considerations of the United States, then I'm happy to do something. The fact of the matter is, Barkha, we are now a close partner of the United States, whether we like it or not, for a variety of reasons, and we can talk about that, but I'm just saying that is the reality. This is a relationship that is arguably the most consequential relationship for India. I am not at all getting into the merits of it, but I am thinking the government of India is doing the right thing by not going jingoist on this, by saying we are going to retaliate and so on. I think you quietly negotiate with the Americans, try and see what deal you can get. In fact, there could be an opportunity or two, frankly, for your textiles and garments, for your electronic products and so on. Agriculture, I worry about a little, including shrimps. I worry about the small and medium enterprises of India. But those are things that, the country and the government has to deal with. But we are not here to defend whether this is in conformity with WTO. He is playing havoc with the MFN system. That we know. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I think from an Indian perspective, I'm trying to see how we can handle this, frankly.
Now, you use the word partner. You said this is one of the most consequential partnerships, and that would be technically the correct nomenclature. The leader of the opposition in Parliament, Rahul Gandhi, used the word ally, which is technically incorrect. India is not an ally of any country. But he did use Trump's tariffs to sort of poke at the government. So there is domestic politics playing out here as well. Just before I come to John and Padma, let's take a look at what Rahul Gandhi said on Trump's tariffs.
Indira Gandhi ji, in the matter of foreign policy, do you lean left or do you lean right? And Indira Gandhi ji answered, I don't lean left or right, I stand straight. I'm Indian and I stand straight. And the BJP and the RSS have a different philosophy. When asked, do you lean left or do you lean right? They say, no, we bow our head right in front of every foreigner that comes in front of us. Sir, this is something that is in their culture, it is in their history, we know that. But we would like an answer from the government of India. What are you doing about our land? And what are you going to do? What are you going to do about this tariff that our ally has imposed on us? Thank you.
What are you going to do about this tariff that our ally has imposed on us? We are not an ally of the United States of America. We are not a member of any military alliance. And no matter which government comes and goes, I would even stick my neck out here and say, I don't see India's foreign policy being upended in that manner. That said, Padma, he's right, or he's within rights to ask, what's the plan? And all we have in terms of the plan is a very anodyne, cautious press release from the government saying we're assessing it. Ambassador Kumar says, correct to not go jingoistic. Subhash Garg says, hang on, these aren't even reciprocal tariffs. He's doing you no favor. He can hug you. He can call you his best friend. But this is all about American interests. Transactionalism, max.
Thank you, Barkha. I think, just to briefly mention Rahul Gandhi, I don't think there was ever a more protectionist government than his grandmother's government. And, I'm a child of the 60s, and the early years of this disastrous flirtation with socialist democracy, or rather socialism, with the Soviet Union as a very close ally, that was disastrous. And we lost decades of industrial development, which only more or less began after Dr. Manmohan Singh brought in reforms. So I would like, except for heavy industry, perhaps you may argue, but I'd like to come at this as a consumer and as a foreign correspondent, really. And and I completely agree with what Ambassador Kumar says, as in layman terms, as an Indian taxpayer, as an Indian middle class professional taxpayer who pays very high taxes. I've not seen any remarkable improvement in the quality of any kind of services, infrastructural or products received in return. So I see these tariffs as an opportunity, both for the government of India, no matter of which political hue, to reshape many of the its policies, which have been hurting the rapidly growing Indian middle class and professional class, but also India's industry, which has for long suffered, most of all, Barkha, from falling short in comparisons to imported products, and the majority of consumers in India will agree with me. Now, as an observer of multilateral relations, I can't speak of tariffs really in economic terms or in terms of bilateral trade, because that's not my subject. But I can try and address the question as to whether these moves are linked to political, geostrategic, or diplomatic relations.
And that is my question to you, Padma.
Yes,
we are not, other than Mr. Garg and Ambassador Kumar, and even John, who brings in a financial expertise. That's not your and my area, but we do look at geopolitics. And when we try and understand the impact of Trump, look, Europe is ablaze with debate. Markets are tanking around the world. Our markets are kind of okay compared to other countries, right?
I'm glad you touched.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm glad you touched upon markets because that would have been the point I'm trying to make. Now one can ask, are these US tariffs fair? Are any tariffs fair if one country is bigger, stronger, richer than the other, right? And one could ask, is it fair that that this is an economic superpower that it demands any kind of tariff parity or even near parity vis-a-vis an emerging power like India, right? Now, but just since Mr. Garg mentioned Vietnam, I'd like to mention Cambodia. Now, on this list which was released by the IMF and the White House, India's per capita income is 2,950 US dollars, right? And that of the US is $89,680. Now, India's is more or less on par with that of Cambodia, which is $2,960. And that is a country with whom the US trade deficit is much lower than what it is with us. It's only $12.3 million.
Yeah.
Now, it may sound skewered to an economist, but a layman at this point will ask, why is then the tariff imposed on India at 26% and that on Cambodia at 49%? Now, there are two reasons. One, obviously, and this is where the geostrategy comes in, and pure marketing also. Cambodia imposes higher tariffs on US goods than India does, and the US president's tariffs are based, as Mr. Garg says, on 50% of that amount, right? Another obvious reason is that US obviously wants to sell its products to India. It's India and not Cambodia, which is poised to be the world's third largest consumer market in 2027. Now, since our average per capita income is unlikely to shoot up within barely 2 years, obviously the US will want to sell goods that are affordable for most Indians. Now, the question, fairness. No, Trump is a businessman. There is no fairness in trade and business anyway. And we have to remember that he views international relations through the same prism. Of course, now this will mean, as Ambassador Kumar says, that Indian companies will have to bend over backwards to match quality, to match other parameters of US goods and perhaps others who may impose sanctions along the way to remain competitive. And this will mean that many items being imported more cheaply from other countries right now may also dwindle in sales.
But let's pick up.
Yeah. So
let me bring in John. Let me bring in John on this point that you made. It's a great quote. Trump is a businessman first and foremost, right? That's how he's going to run the White House. That's how he's going to run domestic politics. Even the whole Elon Musk cut government spending, shutting down things. It's all coming through the lens of a businessman. How do I save money? How do I make America richer? That's the record. I want to end wars also, not from any point of principle or ideology. I want this country to be rich and therefore great again. John, your take.
Well, thank you, Barkha. First of all, I think we are doing a lot of mind reading and characterizations that are totally flawed, in my opinion. You started the show by calling it a bombshell, slap in people's faces. None of it is really true. India and other countries do business with America. America does business with India. And in business or anything else, and a very important thing for us to do is KYC, know your client. India must know America as a client. To do that, all Indians who are involved in this discussion, debate, should first read a book called No Trade is Free by Robert Lighthizer. I've mentioned this book to people and they get turned off. They said, I'm not going to read it. Some people said, you must read the book. It's well written. It has very good arguments, charts, and show what the issues are. And then you should also know American history. American history, for the 250 years old country, for 2/3 of its history, we had only tariffs. We had no income tax. Tariffs were one of the main sources of our revenue, and tariffs were used to protect American industry and nurture them. The steel industry and others were able to grow. Cotton, tobacco, everything grew because tariffs were an important tool. We gave it up, and then when after the war, America did not become rich by industrializing. America built its own domestic economy by, first of all, the FDR's programs. We built America, and then during the Eisenhower term, we built the interstate highways, made the national economy into a very large economy. And then we built housing, a very big sector. It's about 10% of our economy. So industrialization is not the main thing here. It's growing one's domestic economy. India should not worry at all about these issues because India's dependence on American exports, not the services exports, which India is doing very well in, IT services and so forth. Industrial exports to America is very, very small. And if it becomes more expensive, India's economy is not going to be affected. India's economy is going to be affected by what India does to 500 million people who are looking for jobs. And India
Yeah.
can follow the American model. India must rebuild itself. Infrastructure building is not about building fancy airports. You must build if I travel to India frequently, the highways are fine, but after you go away from the highways, the local roads are terrible.